Hey everyone, thank you very much for joining us for another thrilling story here at Danny Narrates. The title for this one goes like this. Husband swears he has no idea who the biomom of the child on our doorstep is, but then I get a call from an anonymous number and I'm in shock because I recognize that voice. Oh boy. So, you probably guessed from the title, but a couple of days ago, someone dropped a child off at our doorstep. For the sake of this post and privacy, I'm going to call him Kai, for male. My husband, 38 male, refuses to tell me what's going on, even though I know for a fact that he's hiding something from me, and definitely knows more than he's letting on. That's what 8 years of marriage and a 9-year relationship before that gets you. For context, I, 38 female, have been married to my husband, again I will refer to him as Dave in this post for privacy, for 8 years, and we had been together for 9 years before that. We met in our final year of university, we went to the same one, and have been together ever since. In the last 17 years, I have not once had any reason to doubt him or question his actions and intentions. I never had any trust issues or any reason to think he might be dishonest or anything like that. That's why this is making me absolutely lose my mind. So onto the problem. On Sunday, yes, this ruined my weekend. We heard the doorbell ring early in the morning at around 8 a.m. while we were still in bed. By the time we got downstairs to open the door, there was nothing there except a small child holding a suitcase and a note. This sounds absolutely ridiculous when I tap it out, and I swear I would be laughing at how absurd it is if it hadn't potentially ruined my relationship. I was honestly just very confused, because who even expects to see that? My first instinct was to ask the child who he was and if he was okay. He didn't seem to be hurt in any way, and I couldn't see anyone nearby who may have left him there. In response, he told me his name was Kai, and that he had come to meet his dad. Cue more confusion. I told him he must have gotten the wrong house, and that he should tell us if there was anyone we could call to help him. He shook his head and pointed behind me, towards Dave, and said, "No, that's my dad." At this point, I still thought he was confused or something, and it didn't even occur to me to think Dave would have something to do with this. This was until he handed me the note. Surprisingly, it was addressed to me and referred to me by name. It explained how the writer was sorry that my husband was a cheating piece of crap, and how he was also a deadbeat dad who couldn't take care of the child he had or even pay basic child support. Again, the letter referred to Dave by name, which made this a lot more believable. It then occurred to me that this entire time, Dave hadn't said a single word. I turned around and saw him standing behind me, seemingly frozen in place, and looking very visibly pale. I asked him what was going on and showed him the note. He took it from me and read it, then went to the living room couch to sit down. At this point, I honestly think I was too confused and shocked to react properly. I kept looking at Dave, who was just staring at the coffee table with his hands folded in front of his face. I was getting tired of his silence, so I finally told him he had to tell me what was going on, or I was going to call the cops to report a found child. This finally snapped him out of it, and he told me not to. Dave said he would explain everything in a minute, he just needs time to think. Which was BS in my opinion. He had all the time he needed, and Kay was still standing there. This was exactly what I told him as calmly as I could, given that there was a child with us. He also swore he had no idea who the mother could be, but that he would figure out what was going on. He told me that this was all some giant misunderstanding and that there was no way this was his child. I asked him why someone would just play a prank like this and how they could know so much about me and him if it was in fact some sort of mistake. He said he had no idea who would do something like this, but like I said, I have known this man for more than 17 years now. I was absolutely certain that he knew more than what he was letting on, and I told him not to treat me like I was stupid. He said to just let it go and give him time, and he promised he would fix and explain everything. That brings me to today. It is now Tuesday evening, and I am still absolutely reeling from the events of the past few days. I know that this whole situation is ridiculous. I know my husband is being extremely shady, and I know this isn't right. To make things even worse, I think I know who the other woman is. Earlier this afternoon, I got a phone call. It was a number I hadn't saved on my phone and I didn't recognize. When I picked up, a woman was on the other end, and I think I knew who. She said, "Hey, I hope you got my note. I know this was a really bad way to break this whole thing to you, but Dave has been leading both of us for far too long. I want you to call me on this number whenever you feel ready, and whenever you have questions you think Dave won't answer honestly." My only response was to ask who this was, but she just gave a very humorless chuckle and said, "I think you already know." And I do. It's disgusting to even think about, but the voice at the other end of the line was my younger sister's. So my husband, the man I have lived with and trusted since we were kids in college, has been having an affair with my sister. It feels like a joke, and I keep thinking this is some sort of nightmare that I'll eventually wake up from. I cannot comprehend or accept what's going on, and it's been so much at once that I oddly feel nothing at all. I haven't spoken much to Dave since the phone call, or even told him about it. I just keep wandering around the house doing useless things like reorganizing the shelves and dusting the bookcases. I don't know what to do, and I simply cannot think. Technically, in my head, I know, and yet I am so conflicted right now. Do I confront Dave? Should I cut my losses and leave? Do I call the cops or something? I know I should technically call the cops, but that's my husband, and I'm also supposed to trust him, so now I'm just lost. This is driving me insane. I'm also sorry if this is all over the place. I'm on a mobile, and I don't really know what to do with my life, let alone this post. I needed a place to vent though, and any advice would be very welcome. Hello, so quick update. I will be attempting to reply to everyone's questions and the hundreds of comments that I absolutely was not expecting. First off, after a couple of more days of me getting myself together and coming back to this post, a lot of comments and PMs I've gotten have been pretty insightful, so I thank everyone for that. Now onto some very valid questions, starting with why I didn't call the police when someone left a literal child at my door. I'm aware of my stupidity here, and I'm aware this could have gotten us into so much trouble. However, Dave seemed to know Kai, and Kai seemed to know Dave. Again, I've been with this person for almost 2 decades, and I wanted to trust him in a situation like this. I will come back to this though. For those of you asking why this is only potentially going to ruin my relationship, I think the internet is quick to pass judgment on other people's situation, but in real life, it's a lot harder to just up and leave an entire marriage. I wasn't, or am, not even fully aware of the situation, and I believe when you sign up to marry someone for better or for worse, you actually have to stick it out for better or for worse. Many of you won't agree, and that's fine, but this is what I believe and what I'm going to follow, for now at least. Another, extremely irrelevant question I have is why we waited so long to get married, and why we don't even have kids of our own yet. I don't think this is relevant to my situation in any way, shape, or form, but we wanted to wait to be financially stable before tying the knot, and we decided early on in our relationship that we were going to be childless. Again, this has nothing to do with what's going on right now, and I don't even owe anyone an answer to this, but I don't want to keep getting asked the same thing, so here you go. As for the letter, what exactly was in it was pretty long, and I don't feel like reading it again or even looking at it right now. The gist of it was that Kai was Dave's child, and that the woman, my sister whom I will call Sarah, was his mother. Apparently, they had an affair, and Dave had promised to leave me for her. However, he had ghosted them when she got pregnant, and Sarah was demanding child support and help in raising Kai. She wrote the letter to me because she felt it was long overdue that I knew, and if Dave didn't leave me for her himself, she would make sure he couldn't have a happy marriage either. To be honest, I don't know how much of this I actually believe. When it comes to Sarah, everything has to be taken with a grain of salt. For everyone asking how I couldn't recognize my sister's number and how I couldn't know if she was involved with my husband, if you hadn't already guessed, our relationship is somewhat strained. She was sort of the black sheep of my family, and our parents had a hard time with her. She got into drugs in high school and fell into the wrong crowd. Despite therapy, rehab, and whatnot, nothing seemed to work. She got clean around senior year. I was already in my senior year of college by this time and wasn't home to help with all this. And my parents even paid for her to go to university. She graduated from university with a degree in communications, but stopped coming home for Christmas and Thanksgiving almost as soon as she got a job and could afford to. To be fair, I don't blame her for that. She held a lot of resentment for my parents, and I'm not sure why, but they did compare her to me every chance they could get. How I had a degree in biochemistry, a husband, a good job, and all that. She seemed to hold resentment against me too, even when I tried talking to her several times. I gave up a few years ago and haven't been in contact with her for almost 5 years now. On Thursday, I finally confronted Dave. I sat him down, and when he told me he needed time and space and whatever else, I was at my wit's end. I had had more than enough with whatever was going on, not to mention I was having to care for this child for most of the day. I'm currently not employed, and Dave just goes off to his job every morning and comes home at 8 p.m. I'm also worried, what about preschool and legalities? This affects so much more than just our relationship, and now that I had time to think and get my head on right, I wasn't about to put up with it longer. I told him he only had two options. Either he is completely clear and upfront with me now, or I'm calling CPS and handing him divorce papers soon. I finally have some answers now, even though they're not the best. He broke down, started crying, and told me that he had cheated on me. I wasn't even surprised by this anymore, and I knew deep inside anyway. However, he did tell me that it happened only once, that it was a one-time thing and all that. He said that it had happened when he was on a work trip that happened to be in the city my sister lives in. For context, my husband works in finance and travels for meetings and such in other branches of his company. We live in Washington, but Sarah moved to Arizona when she got her job after college and just never came back. Anyway, he ran into her at a bar, they were drunk, and one thing led to another, and they spent the next week together. I told him what was in the letter and what she told me over the phone, but Dave denied a full-blown affair and said that he told her that he would leave her for me. He did not know about the child because she kept contacting him with pictures and accusing him of being the father. He didn't know during the pregnancy. She only got in contact with him over the past couple of years. Dave doesn't think he's the father though, and honestly, given my history with Sarah and knowing how she is, I am inclined to believe him. Like I said at the beginning of this update, everything she says needs to be taken with a grain of salt. She isn't married and isn't in a relationship, as far as I know, and this could be anyone's child. She also hasn't pursued anything legally, which makes me think this is probably true. That's all for now, but I'm thinking of where to go from here. On the one hand, he did cheat on me, and I know several people here will be of the opinion that I should divorce him. However, I don't want to do that. And I know people make mistakes. We also have a child to deal with between all this, so I'm thinking I will at least get in contact with a lawyer. It's been a week since I posted here. We did get into contact with a lawyer first thing Monday morning, and Dave has taken some time off work to get things sorted. Things are not completely alright of course, but for now we have been advised that since Dave isn't on the child's birth certificate, he isn't actually obligated to pay anything, and Sarah has no right or legal basis to demand financial support. However, paternity could be established through a DNA test. We sent a sample to get tested, but the results won't be until next week. I called back my sister at the number she had called me from. She didn't pick up, so I left her a voicemail telling her she needed to pick up Kai or we would be calling CPS, and that any further contact would be through our lawyers. This was 2 days ago, and she did show up at our door yesterday to pick him up. There was a lot of yelling on her part, telling Dave that he was a POS and that she wished they had never met. I felt sorry that Kai had to see all of that, but I didn't do or say anything. I just wanted her to leave as soon as possible. She did turn to me though, and say she thinks I deserve a person like him, and she's glad that my seemingly perfect life is a lie. I did speak up then. She had said so much in the note and on the phone about how Dave was at fault and lying to both of us. Why the sudden switch up? Apparently she didn't expect Dave to tell me the truth, and she didn't expect me to stay with him despite it. I still don't really understand her reasoning here, so I'm just confused about the whole thing. I guess she was jealous of me and my perfect life, and having a child must have been hard too. We were practically estranged for a reason. She left after this, and Dave and I were finally alone in our home again. It felt weird. There was still a lot to unpack between the two of us, but this was the most I had relaxed over the past couple of weeks, and exhaustion hit me like a ton of bricks. I ended up just going to bed. That brings me to now. Even though we talked things out, I still needed time to process the fact that he cheated on me with my sister. I know it was a one-time thing, and I do trust him still, but it definitely stinks. I also feel terrible about my sister. This is the type of thing that I don't think we can come back from. She's going to end up hating me more than she already does for whatever reason. The only thing to do now will be to wait and see what the paternity results are and move forward from there. I still haven't spoken to Dave other than in small talk over dinner and before bed. I will not be considering divorce, but I do need time to process this whole thing, and I don't think I'm currently doing a very good job at that. Hi everyone, it's been a month since I logged on here. I've had so many people ask for updates and paternity results. The past month has been crazy, and I sort of forgot about my post here. I'll start from where I left off. I got a lot of comments too with advice and opinions, even unkind ones. But thank you to everyone who took the time to try to help out a little. For starters, sorry to disappoint. I will not be leaving Dave, guys. I know this is completely the wrong decision according to many people, and I don't condone staying in marriages that are harmful to either party. However, that is not the case with us. I ended up speaking with Dave that weekend. I told him how this was the sort of thing that ends marriages, and he did start crying again. I felt terrible because I do love him, and I've known him for so many years that I know he would never intentionally hurt me. We talked quite a bit about how things had been going between us and why he felt the need to do what he did. He swears it was a dumb one-off thing that he regrets to this day, and I believe him. We obviously need more work in our relationship. A lot of comments here mention couples counseling, and I think it's a really good idea. I will be looking into it as soon as possible. Onto the update we've been really waiting for. The paternity results came back negative. It was a huge relief for both of us, and I think it's a lot easier to work on our relationship and forgive him, knowing he does not have a child with someone else. The results were mailed by our lawyers, and we haven't really heard from Sarah since. She did leave pretty nasty texts and voicemails for me and Dave at first, but after the results, it's been radio silence. I don't know how to feel about her at this point in time. We had never been close growing up, but she's still my sister, and cutting off family is not something we were taught to be okay with growing up. I did try calling her and texting her to talk things out a couple of times, but I have not gotten a response, and I think I'm going to give her space. I would like to help out with Kai in any way I can, but maybe it's the best for us if we keep our distance for some time. Some people think I was the golden child growing up, and I did have to look that up, but when I did, it seemed kind of accurate. Sarah did tend to be neglected a little by our parents, and they did compare her a lot to me. It was mostly to motivate her to study and focus on her school and college, because I was a pretty studious kid. That being said, they never treated either of us differently. Birthdays, big events, all of which were celebrated equally. I will admit I had more events to come to, and I do not mean to brag, but I happened to be in a lot more clubs and sports that she ended up being in. I know my parents gave her some heat for that, but they wanted what was best for us at the end of the day. I don't understand why she wouldn't want to be around us anymore after a lot of thinking, and I do feel sorry about it. In the last few years, she was at family events, including my wedding. My parents did seem to nag her about her career and future, even though she's a grown woman. I saw this happening growing up too, but I didn't do much to stop it even after adulthood. Maybe I should have, but I never thought of it that way. In my previous update, I got a lot of people calling me a pushover and worrying about me not putting myself first. I appreciate their concern, but I assure you guys that I am perfectly fine. And this is what I wanted this time. The person I feel the worst for in this whole thing is Kai. He's only a little child, and I'm sure this affected him in some way. While I am absolutely pissed at Sarah, like I said, she's still my sister. This type of behavior on her part after years of almost no contact is concerning too, and I'm sure there had to have been a reason. I think before anything, family comes first. And that is the reason I will not be cutting anyone off from my side. My parents are not yet aware of this entire situation. We live in different cities, and I don't want them to get involved just yet. This matter is private, and they can be a little harsh when it comes to situations like this. I know they will be harsher and more judgmental on Sarah instead of Dave, despite both being equally at fault. Given my newfound knowledge of what golden child is and what I remember from our childhoods, I don't think I want to go that route. I guess we'll tell them eventually, but only after careful consideration and once we ourselves are more comfortable with things. For now, I think I will be getting back to work. I need something to do, and sitting home all day does not help. I keep thinking about the fling, and it's making me feel terrible. I started applying for jobs last week, so hopefully something goes through. As for Dave, I don't love him any less, but my trust and faith are pretty damaged at the moment. Hopefully counseling will be good for us. I truly want to thank everyone here who gave their input and who had kind words to share. I think that's all for now, and I don't think I'll be updating again unless something really huge happens. And that was it for today's story. Thank you very much for listening. Smash that like button for me and subscribe for more stories. Thanks again. We'll be seeing you in the next one.